welcome to Jaded. Oh, it's not. Oh, now it is. Hey, good evening. It's Saturday night. You're listening to Jaded. It's Kim Ochelli, and I think Daniel Lewis Crumpton is going to call. I think, right? Didn't he say he was going to call? I think in like 5 or 10 minutes to talk about whatever. But hopefully everybody had a nice holiday. It was kind of quiet over here, being that the baby's only 6 months old and really doesn't get the concept. So that's kind of good. But other than that, not much going on. How was your show?
Oh, it was all right.
I couldn't listen. I was busy.
People were not happy that I had on a guy. People were not happy that I had on a guy that was pretty much telling you that, Sandy Hook might have happened, and that the court.
Some of the things that I saw, it kind of looks like it was not real. But, what the hell do I know? I don't know. I just look at things and say, again.
Yeah, well, it's just one of those things where there's more than one side to the story, so.
Well, usually. Usually there is, but whatever. Were people happy with it or no? Like I said, I didn't really listen. I was with the baby.
Generally, no.
Oh.
What else is new?
Did they ask you about the dancing Israelis? Because they're still in the kitchen. I kept them in the cabinet.
Well, look, I said a couple of days ago in the chat room, from now on I'm going to refer to my nuts as dancing Israelis.
Oh,
and,
well, they're not in the kitchen cabinet.
No, they are not in the kitchen cabinet. I can quite definitively say so.
That would just be wrong.
But that's what I'm going to call them from now on. And, of course, I'm pretty sure somebody said something about dancing Israelis to,
all right.
to keep the show going. But,
that's okay.
Hey, what can you do? And I actually don't have control of the keyboard, just so everybody knows. That's
that's me typing.
Kim typing in the chat room under the Ochelli effect because, well, it's hard to switch over things really quickly when I'm trying to finish up with the guest off the air really quick and all that. Of course.
What's he said? What's his view? What's his take? That it did happen?
Oh yeah, and and of course. Bunch of people were not happy with that. Let's see, what do we got there? Message?
I think Daniel's going to call.
Oh, okay. Well, when Mr. Crumpton wants to join in, feel free. Just call and we'll add you into the call.
Oh, I forgot to give the number again. All right, it's 718-717-8296 if anyone wants to call and just bullshit. That's pretty much all I do. Last week was, God, I was so tired I didn't even know what I was talking about. It was a pretty funny show, though. I thought.
Guess.
Hecty was pretty good.
Hecty's always fun. Always welcome to call in.
Yeah, he's funny.
Yeah, well, you gave out the phone number, right? Also, if you're on my Skype list, you can just Skype me real quick, and I'll add you into the call as well, because Kim's using my Skype account, so that we don't have any problems with trying to sign in, sign out, and all that. So, yeah, if you're on the Charles.Ochelli Skype list, go right ahead, join in, and like I said at the end of that show, if somebody just wants to yell at me or whatever, you can do that too. So, that's fine.
What channel was that show we were watching earlier? Oh, that was on Fox.
Well, you got worked up watching it.
I don't really like Fox.
News, on the Fox News feed, yeah.
But there was a program about parenting wars or something like that. And there was that lady that had a little boy, and she would ask him every day, did he feel like a boy or did he feel like a girl? What the hell is that?
Oh, be careful, Kim. You're going to wind up in the same
terrible
boat that I'm in.
That's because. Fine. But if you have a son, why would you ask him if he felt like a little girl today?
Well, because there's no such thing as gender anymore, don't you know? According to the new normal of politically correct, to practically identify someone by their sex is a crime. And, you have to recognize that there are 27 possibilities or what sexual orientations. Their literal sex is up for grabs. In fact, boys and girls are not different. They're actually just programmed to be different according to society and all that kind of politically correct, over-the-top, out-of-control nonsense.
Oh, that was probably the most stupid thing I've ever seen on TV. And these people have doctorate degrees. I don't have a doctorate degree, and I can parent better than any one of those people on TV.
Well,
I think.
But you see, this is part of the agenda to cause greater, gender confusion out there. And I'm telling you, I mean, a lot of other people don't see it that way, but I see it as, one of the destructive elements that's been entered into the group psychology to sort of dismantle any sort of vague representation of what was, a family and the truly unique sort of characteristics that the two sexes each, embody, as well as the interactions and relationships. It's meant to demonize it and destroy it.
It goes back to the comment I made last week of we're raising a bunch of pussies. A little boy is not supposed to act like a little girl.
Well,
this particular mother is encouraging her son to say, I feel like a little girl today. So what is she going to do? Dress him up in a pair of little girly sandals and a skirt and send him on his way? Kid's going to get his ass beat.
Well, yeah, maybe, but maybe not. It's just like the recent conversation I had with somebody that you and I both care about, where I tried to explain. I asked a question first, actually, and I said, okay, so in this new normal that we're dealing with here, someone simply decides that they are a female or male or other, right? And there's varying forms of transgender. You could be a woman trapped in a man's body. You could be a man trapped in a woman's body. You could be a non-sex person. This is a new kind of thing, too.
Well, how the hell is that possible?
Oh, well, you just don't have a gender. You're non-gender specific. So here's the thing. So based on your decisions, your mindset, your mentality, your chemistry, that this is part of the reality, that this is part of, this is, and here's where the thing got offensive, was, this is science, and it has been pushed as science for some time now, that gender is not something that's embodied by your physical body. This is why you can have the transgenders are quite normal. They're just as normal as anyone else. In fact, they refer to normal heterosexual people as breeders and things like this. What was weird to me was, I said, well, science is science. Okay, well, let's look at science for a minute. Simply because someone has a sex change and gets hormone replacement therapy and all that kind of stuff, I mean, don't you understand that doesn't change their actual makeup? And they said, no, it does. And I said, well, no, it doesn't. It actually, you have either an XX person or you have an XY person.
Well, it doesn't change the chemistry in the brain.
Well,
you can shoot it full of hormones and clip off its nuts and whatever else you want to do. It's still a male brain.
But it does change brain chemistry if you introduce these things. It's not the chemistry. What I'm saying is the physical being is still as it was from birth. There's an XX or an XY. It's that simple. You have either a male or a female body. There's just no two ways about it. Now, occasionally, there are people born with both, and I understand that. But even in that way, they lean toward one or the other, and genetically they present as either XX or XY. I mean, they just do.
Exactly. They lean. And then you have these parents that are trying to teach their kid that you can be both if you want to be. No, you can't.
Yeah, but with no physical manifestation of that. It just becomes, part of the psychology. So psychology is more important than physical reality, according to the new politically correct norm.
Well, politically correct norm, that's a joke on itself.
Well, that's the thing, You're not allowed to state that. And here's what kills me is I think that it's actually so beyond just, trying to stick to like a moral perspective. It's really about of the possibilities, regarding what you can be and what you want to be and what you actually are. I mean, these things are so terribly twisted and morphed from one to the other that it's almost indiscernible. But it actually does a serious disservice to the differences, the strengths that are actually part of the gender-specific nature of the human being.
Well, do you think they're doing that? Oh, I just want to say we added Daniel in. Just give me a second, Daniel, so I can make this point, okay? I wonder if they're...
No, I will not do that. I am so... No.
Yes, you will. Now you made me lose my train of thought. You can't do that this late at night. What was I saying? Oh, right. That... Do you think that they're doing that on purpose so we don't have strong males anymore?
Well, I
like,
think
is that the point of trying to make a man more like a woman?
It seems to me very double-edged because, like I was saying, it absolutely denigrates the uniqueness of each gender. It makes the female, the greater characteristics of the gender much less important. It makes the greater characteristics, the stronger characteristics that are generally, embodied in the male gender also, ridiculously not part of the equation. So, if you muddy things up enough, there's no reason to have definition. There's no reason to have these great strengths. And it really speaks to creating a sort of a singular gender, a singular thought, a singular mismatch of things where you have no need for identity at the end of the day. Once you take away that particular, bedrock of identity, what are you doing but destroying the rest of it, which evolves from that. But anyway.
Hi, Daniel.
Hi, Daniel.
Did he leave? Oh, he
Hello, Kim.
Oh, there he is.
There
All
he
right.
is.
How are you?
Hello, dear.
Good. How was your holiday?
Pretty good. How was you guys' Christmas?
Very nice.
Oh, it was fantastic.
Good.
One of the best I've ever had.
Wonderful.
Same with you guys?
Yeah, it was quiet because, Frankie's only 6 months old, so he just, crawls around a little bit and pulls on the dog's ear here and there, and he doesn't know what it's all about yet, so in time.
Your connection is
Nobody really knows what it's all about, but yeah, the quiet ones are typically the best.
Your connection's a little weak there, Daniel. I don't know if you can do anything to get yourself in a slightly better spot or something. Can you hear me, sir?
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
How am I sounding now?
You're breaking up left and right.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Oh, now I hear you. Oh,
whoops.
Now I
don't. Okay.
Hmm.
Well, that's kind of shitty. Well, he'll call back. Right?
No,
maybe.
He hasn't actually hung up from the call. He's still showing connected, right?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how to use
Well,
this
I don't
thing.
see the little dots going there, which means he's not disconnected. Hopefully, we're still on the air.
Yeah, well, we'll see. Well, anyway, back to until we can get, because I want to talk to Daniel about.
Well, I was going to say,
lady.
It would be great to talk to him about this because it also, completely disrupts the really interesting and really fascinating and rather misunderstood basic nature of, coupling and mating as it is. I mean, not simply for the production of children, don't get me started on that, but the idea of, being attracted to a mate who has a particular, a particular quality or a particular whatever. I mean, these are sort of things that are scientifically understood, that we select mates based on something that we want to kind of add to our gene pool. I mean, this is old research, but and I'm not speaking to it very well. But the fact is that a lot of these things, encompass the literal motives of why it is we conduct our lives in the way we do.
Well, I read something. I think it was on Facebook about.
And there's Daniel again.
Is he back?
Let's just see if we can hear him now.
I don't hear anything.
Well, I heard a little noise. Daniel.
Right, how does it sound?
That's
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah.
There we go. Okay.
I think Skype's having gremlins tonight because you were kind of cutting out on your show a little earlier. So I don't know if it's me or Skype or what.
Oh, I don't know, man. It might be your internet connection. I seem to maintain my connection during my show, but who knows? And I'm sure that's much to the dismay of the regular UCY listeners who didn't appreciate what I was doing, but that's okay. So, and this really actually leads really well into what we wanted to talk to Daniel about tonight.
Yes. I want to hear the story about your lady. How you met her.
Well, let me first address the topic you guys were just talking about, because I always like to be the elephant in the living room. Just introduce things that people haven't really considered. But yeah, it does seem that in the past few years there's been a confusion of gender identity, and you have different groups that point fingers at other groups, and I don't want to get into all that. But one of the ways that I would just put this suggestion out there, just a suggestion or food for thought. Could it be that the topic of reincarnation might have something to do with that?
What, you think that that there's a natural shifting in gender identity based on the fact that, like, say, a person and so on?
Say that again, Chuck, because you broke up a.
Oh, sorry. I was saying that a male person having been reincarnated, say, into a female body or vice versa, this kind of thing, you think is a part of a legitimate change in the gender identity equation?
Uh-oh.
Boy, oh boy. Okay, there we go.
I do. I think that that has a little bit to do with what's been rapidly going on. Me and you, and I know, Kim, last time I was on your show, people, they often wonder how I can switch from political to then this type of a topic, and, without changing gears too much. So if anybody who's a regular listener of yours has heard me on the last one, this will probably be a different conversation because it's just me talking, from my own point of view. But yeah, personally, I do believe that me and Chuck have talked about this off and on the air a lot. And, this topic that we're entering into a new age or a new era, that there's a shift going on, not only in consciousness, but in our planet and in our solar system, and even, the whole universe really is going through a shift. And I think that we're reaching a point in civilization or in history where this topic of reincarnation is starting to really rise up.
Mm.
Well, that makes sense, but if somebody was supposed to be a girl, then why weren't they born a girl?
That might have a lot to do with it.
See, you would figure that they would
manifest. Well, here's the thing.
Good.
Uh-oh.
Huh. All right, I'm not sure what's...
No,
you kind of drifted off there. You said, here's the thing, and you were gone. Oh, Skype. Gotta love you.
No, here... Yeah, can you hear me good now?
Now I can, yep.
Okay. Yeah, the thing... Yeah. It's not necessarily, here's my personal belief. I always tell people, like the Buddha, I can't tell you how to become enlightened. I can only tell you how I became enlightened. I'm not preaching a different religion. All I can talk to is my own personal experience and my own personal beliefs on certain things. But I think that the process that reincarnation works, from my perspective and personal experience, is that whenever you choose to incarnate into this existence, into history at whatever point, it's an experience. It's kind of like a ride. And the point of a ride is to not know how, what the twists and the turns are, and not how it's going to end up. It's supposed to be for your experiential entertainment. And so you choose to incarnate or come into a cycle of incarnations, experiencing different things. And as consciousness, it would, to me, only make sense in a quest for knowledge, which, everyone knows that I identify myself as a Sophian Helio-Gnostic, which is the pursuit of knowledge. It would only make sense to me that as consciousness, you would want to experience firsthand as much as you possibly could, and that would include living on Earth as both male and female. And these memories are, after one incarnation to the next incarnation, are kind of fractured. We're able to carry bits and pieces of memories or traits or, birthmarks, even things like that from the past life into the next. Some people have reoccurring dreams or fears of drowning. It's my belief that, people with a fear of drowning probably died, but that's how they passed on in the last life, was through drowning. Some people, who are having gender identity crises now, more likely than not was an opposite sex in previous lives or future lives. And those memories are retained in your genetic memory.
But if you come back reincarnated, aren't you a completely different person?
That's to really kind of, in trying to wrap your head around reincarnation is, it takes, astrophysicists, Buddhists, and like 3-year-olds. You become a different person or a different perspective, but the essence of your consciousness remains. That's a good way to explain it. well, really, there is no good way to explain it because this is all kind of ineffable, which is you can't really put it into specific words. You can only tap around it. But I would suggest to look at Buddha's his Four Noble Truths whenever he sought enlightenment and escaped samsara, the life wheel, the wheel of death and rebirth and death and rebirth. And basically what his Four Noble Truths were was, 1, life is suffering, and 2, suffering is caused by desire, 3, desire is caused by the self or the ego. And let me stress right there, what the ego is the identity that you were given when you came out of your mother's womb. Or, somebody gave you the name Kim, or they gave you the name Chuck. They said, okay, you're a white, you're a Christian. This is your ego. This is your identity, your little self, this jar of clay that the bigger light is trapped within. And so the fourth noble truth is that there is no self. There is no ego. That identity that was handed to you is not who you really are.
Well, that's for damn sure, because I was a rebel
part
from
of
the time I was 5.
Consciousness. Hindu. Oh, yeah.
No doubt.
Seekers typically are. They typically are.
The seeker of what? What am I seeking?
Seekers of the truth. The higher truth, your higher self, God. The holy grail, so to speak, the tetragrammaton, the secret name of God. All of that. There's many different names, many different words for it, but like I would lean back to the Buddhist philosophy that what we're actually seeking is ineffable. There's really no words to understand it in especially human language, period. But it's this feeling that we all were born with that there's a mystery that we're all supposed to be trying to solve. We've had it from birth, that there's a veil that's been wrapped over our eyes, that we forgot something. I mean, even human from amnesia. If you go by Orthodox history, we don't know too much past about the Babylonian area or before, from the cradle of life. But we have structures and we have technology that are so advanced that we're digging up all over the world that clearly what we read in history books, especially in public education systems, that can't be the true history. There has to be more. So we've been wiped. Our memory has been wiped. And in a way, that's kind of how reincarnation is. You experience what you came here to experience, and then at the end of your fleshly life, you get off the roller coaster and you go, okay, that was fun. I want to ride it again. I want to ride something again. But you're going to change it up a little bit. You can only play the same video game so many times before it gets boring. So you go, okay, well, I'm going to reincarnate this bigger essence of who I truly, truly am is going to give myself self-induced amnesia and then re-enter the ride so that I could experience it. For example, everybody has a favorite movie or a favorite book, but you can only watch that movie for the first time once. It loses something every other time you watch it or play it. So obviously, as consciousness, wanting to experience the most that you can, you will make yourself forget when you reincarnate.
Well, I find if I watch a movie more than one time, I learn something that I didn't gather the first time. That's
right. That's exactly right. And we could think of Earth as the ride. But sometimes, like, if you ever go to a theme park, some roller coasters you get in the middle, right, and it's one experience, and then some you get in the front, and it's a slightly different experience, and then you get in the back, and it's a slightly different experience. And to me, in my personal beliefs in a lot of ancient texts, the way reincarnation works is that you made like a soul contract before you got here that you were going to incarnate X amount of times from different perspectives or different seats of the roller coaster, and then once you'd experienced all that you could on that one roller coaster, and that could vary. I mean, you could have many different variables. Like, for example, you can get in the front seat and you could be clutching the harness. But the next experience is slightly different. You can get in the front seat and have your hands held up in the air. And you could do that with every single seat. So you have an infinite amount of possibilities of how you can experience that ride. But eventually, you're going to play them all out. And then you're going to start yawning. And you're going to go, okay, it's time for a different ride. Time to get on a different ride and then do it again. Well, because anybody's nosebleed.
Well, couldn't that just be, because you're a thrill seeker? I mean, I'm a thrill seeker. I don't like to do anything that's mundane or boring.
But even the thrill after a while,
that's
not the thrill, you know.
Well, some people like to play it safe, and they don't want to take that next roller coaster ride on the other seat because they just aren't. That's not their personality.
Well, that's how we're all of a different essence in his, his analogy. I mean, basically, there are some people that are going to want to ride that very same ride and probably ride it exactly in the same spot because they liked it, you know. There are others of us that will say, well, look, I've done this already. Now let's go over to the next ride, you know, and then something else, you know. So the thrill-seeking might be, you know, moving on to jumping out of an airplane next time instead of going on a roller coaster, etc., you know.
I don't know if I would ever do that. That's a little scary. I'll go on those crazy roller coasters, though.
Yeah, well, you know, hey, look, if H.W. Bush can jump out of a plane.
Well, that's true. Then I probably can.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, well, I'm going to jump out of that rabbit hole, hop in my Jeep, and go to the next one. So I wanted to hear about your lady, Daniel, because I always see your posts on Facebook. Okay. So how did you meet her? And what is it?
Okay.
Well, first of all, I want to know, did you just see her and it was like, oh, there she is, or did you actually know her first?
I
stumped Daniel.
That's a multifaceted question. No, it's hard to put it into words. Because I'm glad we talked about reincarnation first. This ordeal with everything's perfect the way it's working. The concept of there's a concept called the twin flame reunion. Have either of you heard of this?
No.
Well, I've heard of the similar. It's similar to the concept of soulmates that the Greeks had. You know, where you have the four-legged beast, which is split into two, which ends up being two separate human beings, and they're your actual soulmate. All that. Is it similar to that?
Yeah, it's connected to that. Essentially, you have what's called soul groups, which is before, as a group consciousness, you decide to incarnate into this reality. Each of you go, okay, each of us have a role, and I would suggest that people read Joseph Campbell's The Hero's Journey. Hey guys, I'm getting some messages that says there's commercials playing over our voices. There's a lot of interference from other listeners. Are you guys getting that?
No.
I'm getting that there's interference, but it's just like your Skype cracking. I'm not hearing any commercials.
Okay, all right. Well, we'll just assume that everything's going fine and continue the conversation.
Well, you go on. I'll check the feed anyway.
Okay. Basically, you have what's called soul groups, which is a group of individuals who travel from one incarnation to the next. But each time they change the role and the lessons that they're supposed to teach one another. For example, before you incarnate with this soul group, one of you can say, okay, I'm going to be the hero of this story. Whenever we all incarnate as a group, I'm going to be the savior figure or the hero. And then another member of your soul group will say, well, I'm going to play your villain. And then, on and on and on. Well, I'm going to be your mother, your father, your mentor, your student. So all of this is agreed upon before the group incarnates. And then, of course, when you incarnate or come into the flesh, all of that arrangement is forgotten. And so you progress throughout the story, so to speak, with a kind of a hint that this person is my antagonist, this person is my mentor, but it's to teach each other. And then when that soul group passes on to another incarnation, they switch the roles up because as a group, you're all getting on the roller coaster together. So the guy who was the villain or the entity that was the villain in the last one is now going to be the hero, and you just switch it up a little bit. So that's the best way I can describe soul groups. People who are in your inner circle, even people that you maybe only know for 5 minutes, but they say something at exactly the right moment, at exactly the right time, that sends you on a soul quest or an evolution of the soul. Could be a part of your soul group. A soul mate is typically someone that you've been extremely close to incarnation after incarnation. It could be a wife or, someone close like that. You have a very, very strong bond. That's typically the what's been the understanding of reincarnation and things like that for a long time. So are you guys following me so far?
Yeah,
we're good.
We're with you.
Okay, y'all are doing tech stuff. Okay.
Trying.
Now, this new concept, which I don't think it's new, it actually goes back to, are we good?
Yeah, you know what it is that your Skype is going choppy on us off and on, and we're getting part of what you're saying. So the new concept you were talking about.
Okay. Yeah, the new concept, it's not really new. It goes back to I believe Plato. I might be wrong about that, but it's one of the oldest concepts. I would say that it's not new, but it's being remembered by those of us who are spiritually inclined. And it's that, okay, you have soulmates, but you also have this this concept where when you were created as a perfect light, an essence, a soul, a spirit, however you want to identify it, were split into two. And one of you took on a male quality, and the other took on a female quality. Now, you're two unique and specific individuals. However, there's still this sense of incompleteness. It's kind of like the yin and the yang. That even though you're not the same person in two different bodies, you are individual. You still come from the original essence or the original light. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I had read somewhere that your soulmate is really what you're lacking. That person brings to you what you're missing. If that makes any sense.
Your twin flame is. Your twin flame. Yeah, your twin flame is. And essentially what happened is whenever you and your twin flame entered into incarnation, typically in your first incarnation, you were together as every love story ever told. Mark Antony and Cleopatra. Adam and Eve, or Lilith and Eve, if you really want to get technical. But in your first incarnation, it was perfect, and then there was a tragedy that happened. And it was to set both of you off on this course throughout incarnation, kind of like figure skaters. The best movie I could recommend is Cloud Atlas when it comes to this. But if you could kind of visualize in your head a dot or a yin-yang, that would be the first incarnation. You were in union in your first incarnation, and then a tragedy happened where the two of you had to go on different paths that were similar but exactly polar opposite. So you would incarnate down, and it would, if you could picture the caduceus or a DNA spiral, every now and then throughout an incarnation, you'll kind of bump into your twin flame, but you won't come together until the two of you have reached full enlightenment, where you get to your last incarnation and the two of you are fully aware, you're fully awake, you're fully enlightened, you've experienced all the pain, the suffering, the learning, the love that you were going to experience. Basically, you're eating up knowledge for each other in opposite ways, similar ways, but opposite ways. And then when the two of you are ready, in your last incarnation, when you reach enlightenment or salvation, or you reach nirvana or whatever, however you want to understand it, touch God, become one with the one, then in this plane, third dimensional, you actually meet your twin flame in the physical. And it is, if you do any kind of research and read what different opinions, because a lot of people have different opinions on this, I can only speak to my personal experience with it. It's a very, very intense experience. It's a very supernatural experience. It's an experience of when you meet them, it's like you're looking in a mirror. It's whenever you hear each other talk, it's like you're listening to yourself. They say, soulmates will finish each other's sentences, but twin flames finish each other's thoughts. It's very, 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 very intense. It's just this at the first glance, I know this person. I know exactly who this person is. They have all of your weaknesses, all of your strengths, all of your pains. You live very similar life paths. That's kind of the concept of the twin flame. It's not a soulmate. It's typically right before you meet your twin flame, you're with a soulmate, and then it ends very, very badly. This is what they call a karmic relationship. Where's it? I'll put a link in, Charles. I'll send a link to you in Skype that kind of sums this up. My friend Nikki, we were actually talking about this last night, and she sent me a really, really good article that kind of sums up the phases of the twin flame relationship. It was probably the most condensed that I could get out there. But when I send it to you through Skype, if you would, go ahead and post it in the message boards so people can take a look at this at their convenience. But so yeah, and the purpose of what they call the twin flame reunion is for the uplifting of humanity as a species. It's not just a relationship that is for materialistic or, the old way of doing things. Well, we got to get married. Why? We got to get married. Well, the church says we got to get married. Why? So we can, get jobs and get 401ks and maybe raise 2.5 kids and then retire and then shuffle off this mortal coil. The purpose of twin flames coming together is for the elevation of our species, for the evolution of our species. Because once two twin flames meet, they go through a process of ascension to where there are so many different aspects to it, but they affect everybody around them in a positive way. It's kind of like flicking dominoes all around the global consciousness to lift us all up as a species to get out of this cycle of misogynistic warfare, all the things that we talk about in the political world that's fading away. That's the purpose of twin flames coming together. And according to a lot of ancient records and writings and philosophies, the period that we're in right now in Earth's history is a period where a great influx of people are meeting their twin flame, because it's a time for evolution, for us all to evolve. So that's kind of the concept of the twin flame relationship, is in a condensed manner. So is there any questions with that one?
No, we had to shut off the chat and everything else to try and keep you clear because you were breaking up off and on, and it's really cool what you're talking about. It's just we're almost afraid to interrupt you because we're afraid that the Skype is going to break up some more. I don't know what the problem is, but it's a little inconsistent here.
It's choppy.
It's really choppy on you. So, no, but this is a great thing, and of course we have marked, and at least you and I in our discussions, and my discussions with anybody who's spiritually evolved, to some degree, we have all come across the idea that there is a sort of an evolution that's occurring naturally. Some people see it as a very dangerous, precarious time for the human species because of this sort of fanning of flames in a spiritual sense. But realistically, I see it as a great chance for the expansion of consciousness, not just in the physical realm, via the internet and the electronic age, but literally in a way that the group consciousness could be raised at this particular time of history. It is a particularly remarkable time to live in my opinion.
Yeah, I would agree with you. And like I would tell a lot of people who are interested in this type of a topic or who are experiencing it themselves, it is a very difficult process at first. It's very, very difficult because whenever the two twin flames meet, you have to understand that they're bringing with them lifetimes and lifetimes and lifetimes of bad karma, that in this last incarnation they have to bring up to the surface and they have to clear it out. And another purpose of the twin flame relationship is that the two, having experienced opposite spectrums of similar experiences, they heal one another. They heal the trauma within one another that you've had from this incarnation's birth. For example, one of you could have been physically or psychologically abused by parental figures your entire life. And the opposite twin flame will have had very nurturing, loving, and kind parents. And the purpose of that is that when the two of them get together, what the one who was abused is lacking in that area, the other twin knows exactly how to heal those wounds. One of you may have had addiction problems, from birth or from early youth. And the other has been very adamant about keeping the body pure and clean and things like that. So that when you come together, you heal one another. And it's a very beautiful thing.
Well, how would somebody who's been, say, abused or addicted to something heal the person that hasn't ever experienced something like that? It would be the other person doing all of the healing, correct?
Yeah, no. Like in the phases of the twin flame relationship, which is very, very intense. The article, you there?
Yep.
Am I still clear? Okay, good. Yeah, the article that I sent Chuck whenever you get it posted. You have the different phases. Basically, there's the preparation phase, which is when old world materialistic relationships come to an end, divorces happen, things of that nature, and your world is turned upside down, completely upside down. And in the next kind of phase, you have this sense that there's somebody out there. You can't be alone. You can't be alone in your own thoughts and your own feelings and your own experiences. And then typically after you have that feeling, a lot of synchronistic events will begin to happen to you, or supernatural events. I've seen some things that people would not believe as far as the supernatural goes, but that's just a part of the life that I live. And then you meet in the flesh, and it's usually by extremely synchronistic, unexpected, door in your face. It's an extreme experience. When two twin flames typically meet, there's a pull in the eyes. And anybody who does yoga or does any kind of internal alchemy and has alkalinized the body, you can feel your chakras, you can balance your chakras. And whenever you lock eyes, there's a physical pull. It's almost like magnets. It's very, very intense. And you can almost hear each other's thoughts. And this is from your first meeting. And it's very, very overwhelming. Very overwhelming. And after that, events start to happen, breadcrumbs. Certain books will come into your life. Certain songs will remind you of the other person. And it's like the universe is conspiring, whether you're married, whether you're not married, whether you're whatever. The universe seems to keep you from any other option but from uniting with your twin flame. But there has to be a period where the two of you kind of separate, and they call it the runner phase, because it's literally like meeting yourself in a different body. So it's so intense that you both have to kind of go off for a while and go, okay, what the hell was that? What did I just experience? How did they know some childhood secrets of mine that I've never told anybody? They just knew it. They just blurted it out. And I've never told anybody that. So it's so intense that the two of them have to part and go through this period of inner work. And then when both of them have kind of done that, then they come back together again, in the physical. So whenever you guys asked me to come and talk about it, I was like, it's such an indescribable experience. It's hard to put it into words. It's hard to kind of, unless you've had it yourself. And there are a lot of people out there who get a hold of me through social media who, they want to know about this type of thing. They're kind of drawn to me and others for answers because their life was going in one direction and now it's going in a completely different direction because they met this individual and everything has changed,
Well, maybe you should write a book. Somebody actually suggested that I do that. But
as far as my lady goes, I call her Trinity because anybody who's ever seen pictures of her, she looks just like Carrie Ann Moss from the Matrix films. Which is, if you don't mind, can I go off on a tangent about that real quick?
Sure, go ahead.
Is that okay? Okay. There's a maxim from the Oracle of Delphi that, and everybody knows I have an affinity for movies and pop culture. It's not just because I like guns and kung fu movies. It's because Jesus or Yeshua, whenever he was trying to explain concepts to people, he had to use parables. He had to use the stories of the day or create stories because we absorb and we understand spiritual things through stories. You know, they didn't have movie theaters back then when he was teaching the masses. So if you were to put Yeshua the Christ in today's world and he's trying to explain these concepts, he would use pop culture. He would have to, because it brings a visual, it brings concepts to the forefront of the mind quicker than any other way. So I use movies and things like that to try to articulate what I'm saying. Because I could say, hey, go read the Bhagavad Gita, and most people aren't going to go do that. But if I say, okay, let me explain it to you this way. You remember in the Matrix movie? Then they go, oh, okay, I get it.
Yeah, it's a point of making it more relatable based on things that have been generally experienced by the masses. This is why you would turn around and who hasn't eaten bread? So let's explain it by bread. Who hasn't seen water? Let's explain it by how a body of water behaves. Same thing, except nowadays people can accept stories and complexities via their movies, their TV shows, whatever. Yeah.
Exactly. So, and this is how I tie that in with the Oracle of Delphi is the Oracle of Delphi said, man, know thyself, and you will know the worlds and their gods. And what she meant was, if you know your own psychology, if you know your own history, then you can look at the outward world, which is just a manifestation of your consciousness, and you can understand yourself, the worlds, and their gods. So if you tie that into the Matrix movies, which there is not, I don't believe that there's one scene of that movie. I don't believe that there's one prop in that movie. I don't believe that there's one piece of script that the actors used that is not deeply, deeply, deeply wrapped in esoteric meaning. There's tons of documentaries that you can get on YouTube about the deeper meanings of that movie. His name was Thomas Anderson, the Son of God. He was in Room 101. Things like 33 popping up in the background, little things like that. That movie has so many encoded truths that it's not even funny. In fact, if human history keeps going as normal, it'll be a religion, just like Star Wars would be an organized religion one day. But so I'm very, very drawn to that movie because it speaks to me in a lot of different ways. And anybody who's seen pictures of me or ever been to ZenInTheCar.com or anything, they know I have an affinity for long flowing, cloaks, things like that.
Yeah, I love them.
I've always had. Yeah, I love them. And the thing is I've always had that affinity since I was a kid. Since I was like 6 years old, my dad, he was an electrician, and he'd have to go to work in these kind of dicky, whatever you call them, I don't know, work shirts, right? And I'm a little 3 foot tall, however tall I was. And one of my favorite things to do was I would always wear my dad's shirts, these dickies over my clothes. And as a little, runt, they looked like a trench coat. So this is something that's been instilled in me since, it's just something that I was drawn to, long flowing things. And as I got older, anytime I find a trench coat or whatever, it's just what I'm drawn to. This is something, I believe this is something that I've carried over from a past life. I remember whenever I first saw the Matrix movie, and the concept of this is not a this reality is a holographic illusion. And I remember it blew me away, like, oh my God, this is so true. It is true. And most people haven't. This is so true. I just knew it was true. So I've always had an affinity with that series, with that storyline, because it comes from all of our collective unconsciousness, really, because it's the truth. It's telling you the truth. But when I really started to look into my spiritual journey was when my father passed, a traumatic event, and that's when I started to look at all the world's face, and it took me on this quest to where I started to look at, at the time I was an Orthodox Christian. I still consider myself a Christian in many, many ways, but not Orthodox. Most of them would have me burned at the stake or institutionalized, and they have, literally. But when I had a spiritual experience, whenever, and we've talked about the pineal or the pineal gland before, and dimethyltryptamine, and how it gives you access to the spiritual realm, or to vibrational frequencies that most people can't conceive with the conscious mind. Well, anything, you can stimulate your pineal gland through trauma and through meditation and internal alchemy. And it gives you access to see certain signs and symbols that secret societies such as the Freemasons and groups like that have been keeping secret for a very long time for the reasons of control and to put our consciousness in servitude. They don't want us to be able to read the signs. But when you go through this process, the Hindus call it the Kundalini rising, you have access to it. So when I experienced a very traumatic event, which is my father dying, in my arms, it stimulated that gland to where I heard his voice, in a young man's voice, but the essence was the same. All of the air from his lungs went into my lungs and filled me up whenever I was giving him CPR, and I heard him say, "Don't panic, son. Everything is going to be okay." And at that moment, I experienced this peace, this absolute peace, that he didn't, he's not really dead. He didn't really go anywhere. He went everywhere, and he's always with me. And that peace lasted, for a good 2 weeks, and then when all the funeral stuff is over with and the family all leaves and nobody's checking on you anymore, you go through this dark period. And that's when I really started to question, because I'd always been taught in organized, churches that you can't talk to the quote-unquote dead. You can't communicate with that side. That's what we were taught. But I knew firsthand, and no one will ever be able to convince me otherwise. I know what I know. I experienced firsthand that you, in fact, could. And I wanted to figure out how you do that. And what I was being fed from the pulpit was not teaching me that. So I went on, going to have to look at other philosophies, Hinduism, Buddhism, Wiccanism, anything I could get my hands on, I just consumed, because I wanted to make contact with him. I wanted to be there. I wanted him to be with me all the time. And almost like it was scripted, the book after book would lay a foundation, and brick upon brick and brick upon brick. And when you start to make the connections between Hinduism and Christianity and Buddhism and Islam, and realize that they're all saying the same thing in different ways, which is that we are all God in the flesh. And even Christians really can't deny this, because Jesus or Yeshua, when his disciples would ask him, they all think that we're sorry sinners. This is what we're taught from birth, that you killed God's son and you're horrible. You're horrible, and you just need to do what we say, and look at this icon of a man who's on a cross, and you did that. It's your fault, so you need to be in guilt and trauma and negative energy all your life because you are guilty, you filthy, dirty sinner. And if you don't do exactly what we say, then God, this God who loves you, is going to throw you in an eternal pit of fire. That's what we were fed, trauma, to keep us from questioning reality. Are you following me?
Yeah, you brought up the Wiccan. I don't practice Wiccan, but I'm more of a pagan. And when you talk about feeling people who have passed, I can feel when there's a shift in the energies in the room, and like the little hairs on my arm will stand up, and I can just feel that something is around me. And it doesn't matter. I haven't been able to figure out who it is, so I'm trying to learn that, because it'll happen at work. It'll happen in my home. And our son, I think he has some sort of ability, because you can watch him follow something around the room and there's nothing there. Like visually. You can feel it.
No, it's there.
Right, but I'm saying, like, I can't see it, but I can feel it. I don't know if he can. Obviously, I don't know yet. He's only...
You can't see it.
Yeah, but he can. Because you can watch his eyes follow something. I mean, and he'll turn his head like an owl to try to follow it. It's just fascinating. You know, I know people are going to think I'm some kind of kook, but... You know, I'm not ashamed to say what I believe. That's what I believe. And if you don't like it, well, you don't have to like it. I'm just, you know, saying this is what I... And when I go into a meditative state, I get told things. I'm not sure who's telling them to me yet. I haven't explored that far yet, but I'm told things. Watch out for something.
Right. And so here's the thing. The thing with that is... to me, it's such a contradiction, and today's Orthodox Christianity is so. Most of them are so hypocritical, because if you start talking about these concepts that I communicate with my father, you know, who's passed over, or my child who's under the age of 6 can see things in the room that I can't see, or hear things, or knows things. Heretic, nobody can do that except for Jesus. But Jesus, or Yeshua, said, greater things than what I do, you will do. But I don't see anybody in a Baptist church making the lame walk or the blind see. I don't see any of that. Now, I have seen Reiki healers do it with my own eyes. But, of course, you know, that word Reiki, you can't find it in the Bible, so that must be a heresy. But it's the same thing. Now, what really, really boggles my noodle is that Pauline Christianity, which is what Christianity today is based off of a guy's account, Saul of Tarsus, riding his horse, and all of a sudden he sees a vision that no one else can see. And based off of this vision that nobody else can see, he experienced it firsthand. You have an entire interpretation of Christianity that has been around for 2,000 years, based off of a guy's personal experience. But when you try to bring your personal experience up, oh, no, you're a kook. That just has always just put a stick in my craw, as they say in Georgia. You know,
right?
It's insane. But
I found it funny when I was a child. See, because a lot of my family were, you know, Roman Catholics. Wow, did they react really strangely to me when I was like 4 years old and starting to have like odd, you know, experiences. One of their first reactions was to literally take me somewhere and try and get an exorcism for me. You know?
Yep, I know plenty of people in my circles who have very, very similar experiences of either institutionalization, medication, or exorcism. Yes, very much so.
So anyway, back to what you were saying, though. I mean,
so back to what that is, and it gets to your little one there. The thing with why children under 6 can see it is because under 6, all your chakras are turned on. Your crown chakra is still turned on because the electricity from root to crown is still activated. So they're still in touch. That's why when you get into ritualistic child abuse, thank you, Vatican, and thank you, Freemasons, what they're doing, the reason that you see a lot of child molestation or child sacrifice is that the energy, the chi, of an innocent child is the most powerful energy that you can harness. So when you hear these instances of these secret societies abusing their children at the root chakra, and this may be an uncomfortable subject for some, but come on, let's put everything on the table, for real. Right. Most children were, they were sodomized by somebody who was either in the Masonic Lodge or, people connected to the Vatican. Why? Because that's where the root chakra is. Now, whenever this happens to a child, it traumatizes them, which shuts off the right hemisphere of the brain, goes into the left hemisphere of the brain, and from then on, they're fractured. They're traumatized. These people feed off of our trauma, which really goes back to other entities that we can't see, which I don't know if we have time to talk about that. Probably shouldn't right now.
We got about an hour.
That's what it is.
Yeah, we got another hour, believe it or not. So, and this is absolutely true. I mean, you can see in some of the very dark practices Even in their text, they allude to this by saying that, the translation is basically, gather unto the children, for they will produce strength. The reason for that is exactly what you're talking about, is that the spiritual energy, having been, untainted, undamaged at that point, is at its purest sort of state. And there's no better way to put that. That's just what it is. And you'll see any of the dark ritual type texts, you'll see that they always encourage the use of children in these things.
And see, if you go to the New Testament text, you have children flocked to Yeshua. They absolutely flocked to him. And I'll tell you right now, the reason is, to an extent, Yeshua had to give up some of his divinity. He didn't know everything. That's clear in the Bible. He had access to that knowledge, but he didn't know everything. He didn't know how it was going to play out. He would talk to children because literally children under 6 are a conduit to the other side. He was getting answers from them. They were giving him instructions. When your little one starts to speak, and my girls here, they say things that's so profound, and it's because they're still connected to source. And that's why Jesus always had children nearby. He was getting guidance from them because he knew that what they were seeing was real. Well, he has a little one sitting on his knee, and remember what he said. He said, and I'll speak in my own scriptural way. He says, look here, fellas, if any of you touch one of these little ones, if any of you harm any of these little ones, it is better for you to take a millstone and walk out into that sea. It's better for you to have never been born, because there's nothing more innocent than the child. And that's why they prey on them, is to absorb that energy, that trauma. And, this, I know personally, and anybody who's listening who has Freemasons in their family, they know that there is so much sexual abuse going on in that area, it's not even funny. And, the Freemasons is a topic that we can get into, but the Freemasons, this cabal, have been holding knowledge about how this reality works. And the practice is neutral. A craft is neutral, like a knife. You could use it to cut bread, or you can use it to stab somebody. It's the intent of the person. And since 1776, they've been using certain knowledge, certain symbols and glyphs and secret words and secret handshakes to control the masses. Well, just like in Star Wars, another analogy, you have a balancing of the Force taking place right now, which ties into your twin flame reunions. And there's a prophecy that the ancient Gnostics have, a mostly widely unknown prophecy in these terms. But I call it the return of the Horai. And essentially what the prophecy states is that, and everybody thought the Mayan calendar and the date, December 21, 2012, was just whatever. But no, it was a time marker of the return of the Horai. And in this particular wording of the prophecy, it was the return of Ra, the sun god, would return. And through his eyes, he would wake up the little eyes of Horus. And light, children of the light. Well, in December the 21st, 2012, we passed through galactic plane. The sun started sending out, photonic energies that haven't been seen by human eyes in 26,000 years. And it's literally what this new frequency is doing. If you do any type of solar gazing, which I do, it is changing your DNA. We are literally evolving. So that's why you have all this symbology about the sun and, the eye at the top of the pyramid. It's the best mantra for it is as above, so below, as within, so without.
See, and what that links to is the Great Cross, across the constellations that lines up, and the Great Terrestrial Cross, both having aligned at that point in time. From an astrological sense, you can follow it that way. This in some symbology forms the 8-spoked wheel, right?
Exactly. Or the Rose Cross, where you get Rosicrucianism from. Right. It's the cross of the zodiac. Yeah. The stars, when you We're all made of stardust, so to speak. That's why we call our kids youngsters. It's a young star. This is a deep concept, but stars and planets are conscious. They're conscious entities. A lot of people have problems with that, but it's the truth. It's the truth. And it's because it's as above, so below, as within, so without. When you look up at the sun, you're literally looking at a reflection of yourself. What you see outside of yourself is everything that you see outside of your conscious mind from the observer is you. It's aspects of you. And Yeshua knew this stuff, okay? This is in the Bible. But one of the concepts that Christians can't quite grasp is, he was saying, okay, look, guys, look. Okay, yeah, I am the Christ. I am the Messiah. The word Christ just means oil or wax or Christos or Crisco or Krishna. And the pineal gland, the optic thalamus, part of your third eye mechanism, produces literally a wax or oil. It's called the Crisco. He says, okay, so I'm the Christ, but the interpretation of that word had been completely altered and blurred by the Sanhedrin. I'm the Messiah. Now, the word Messiah just means to smear on the forehead with oil. And all of our brains, every one of our brains produces this oil, this cerebrospinal fluid, every single day. He was referring to these things. He says, okay, but let me try to make it easy for you guys who have been so confused by the religious leaders. I'm the Christ. You guys believe that? Yeah, we believe that. All right. I and the Father are one. Do you believe that? Yep, we believe that. Because, okay, so if you believe everything I'm saying, you believe on me, you are one with me. Ta-da! And most of them scratched their heads. A few people got it. His inner circle got it. Of course, Mary Magdalene really got it. He was saying, look, if I'm God in the flesh, you're God in the flesh. You just don't remember yet. I happen to remember. But he wasn't the first person to remember. Buddha remembered before him. Krishna remembered before him. And he wasn't the last. He wasn't the last. We are all God in the flesh. All of us. Some of us just don't remember. Some of us don't remember so vehemently that we will attack each other, literally ourselves, to shut it up. Because some people aren't ready to wake up from the illusion of who you really are and what you can really, really do. Jesus wasn't trying to create a religion where everybody bowed down and worshiped him. He even said that in that day you shall ask of me nothing. You can go and ask the Father yourself directly. But they miss out on it. That's why that interpretation is dying away, because it's time for it to die away. It's time for it to die away. And Masons have known about this. And one of the ways that they control us as a consciousness, as a society, is Dan Brown wrote a book called The Lost Symbol. And what his concept of the lost symbol was what's called the acupunct. And essentially what the acupunct is a circle with a dot in the middle. Almost looks like an atom. Now, if you could take that and in your head try to visualize that is the truth, it's the Om, that we are all one in perfect harmony and balance. Well, how the controllers of this world system have made us forget, or have they have power over us, is, okay, if you could close your eyes and picture that circle with a dot in the middle. Now draw a line from the very, very top to the very, very bottom. So you split it. You split the consciousness. Now there's an interruption. All right. Now take another line from the left and then take it to the right. Now you split it four ways. And then you keep adding lines until you create the spoke wheel. Now the truth that we are all consciousness, we are all one, we are all God, we are all Brahma, has been split so many different ways that as a consciousness we're suffering from traumatic amnesia. Now take that spoke wheel and imagine a slice of that pie, okay, with its multiple lines going through it. And say that one slice of that pie is Catholicism. There's truth in it, but it's walled off from the rest of the truth. And say the pie next to it is Judaism. There's truth in it, but there's also confusion. And go all the way around the wheel, giving the organized religions a slice of that pie. And so whenever you identify yourself as strictly a Muslim or strictly a Christian or strictly whatever, pick it. You have truth within every religion, but it's been walled off. to keep us from coming to the truth, which is that they're all saying the same thing. We are all one. We're all one with the one. We are all that essence.
Hmm. Well, this is precisely what I was talking to you about. You kind of broke up there, but this is precisely what I was talking to you about off the air a lot. Was this has been my concept for a very long time? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you know, and secret societies have known this, and that's, you know, and if you take that slice of the pie, it forms the pyramid. You know, we know that they like to use the symbol of the pyramid a lot, but a part of what the ancient Egyptians were teaching, the ancient Gnostics were teaching, is you have something called the initiation of the pyramid, and it was whenever a young adept was being considered to become pharaoh, they would take him through the trials of the pyramid. Now, and I would ask people to visualize it. You have 3 chambers in the pyramid. Okay, you have the entrance, and then it goes down into a downward shaft. Everything's carved perfectly until you get to this one spot that's broken up, and then you hit a dead end. Okay, now that's going into hell, going into the underworld, going into destruction. So when you hit the dead end, you have to come back up. And they didn't know it until they were doing some excavation with dynamite later. But this hidden compartment broke free, and they found this upper shaft that goes into the Queen's Chamber. The Queen's Chamber represents organized religion. All right. The word church comes from the Scottish word circe, or kirk or church or circe, which was an ancient goddess that would build a house and then weave fairy tales to lure men and women in, and then she would eat them alive. That's organized religion. That's the Queen's Chamber.
Well, that's pretty accurate.
That's exactly where it comes from too. That's precisely where the concept comes from.
Wow.
And that's why, you know, if you look at Star Trek, you have Captain Kirk of the good ship Enterprise, which organized Christianity, and then you have a Vulcan who gives a Judaic hand symbol as live long and prosper as the second in command. Okay? Mm-hmm. So, organized religion eats you alive. So,
make you broke, too.
You went into hell, you hit a dead end. Yeah. It's control. It's trauma-based mind control. So now you're in the Queen's Chamber. This isn't working out for you. So now what you have to do is you have to see these rungs. They go up a narrow shaft, and you have to climb your way up into the King's Chamber, where you now have access to direct light. It's either it's Sirius or Orion's belt. I think it might actually change based off of where we're positioned. But you can now see the light for yourself, with no one behind a pulpit, no organized religion, no titles, no any of that. You have direct access. Direct access. Now you can't be controlled. You're a sovereign. All right? That's one of the meanings of the pyramid. That's what it really means. It's this process of apotheosis, realizing, oh my God. You know, Alan Watts, he says this, it's so funny. He says, you know, if you wake up in this country and you say, you know, I'm the Messiah, they'll either have you put in jail or an insane asylum, which is the same. But if you wake up in, you know, India and you say, oh my God, you know, I'm God in the flesh, your family will go, oh, finally you realized it, congratulations. You know, but that's because this organized religion has more of a clamp over here. But it's funny the way he says it. So all that to say this, when you have that direct access, there comes something after the adept of the pyramid that goes through the initiation of the pyramid has to experience. And basically the trials of the pyramid is to face all of your fears head on and master them. It's to face all of your fears. And I'd like to tell people that one of my mentors told me is that fears are dragons, or dragons are fears, fire-breathing dragons. But here's the thing. What were dragons intended to do? They were intended to guard treasure. So the bigger the dragon, the bigger the treasure. And you got a choice of either turning and running, or you run straight on, face your fear, cut the dragon's throat, and claim your treasure. And that's the process of the initiation of the pyramid. Now, I'm sorry?
I said that was interesting.
Did you say something, Kim?
What you just said was interesting.
So, most people's greatest fear is the fear of death. So what the initiation of the pyramid's final phase was because you can't have a truly enlightened person that can be controlled, and you control through fear. It could be either, when it starts off from childhood, you'll get a spanking, or you'll go to timeout or whatever, and then it goes up into the religions, you'll go to hell or whatever. But the biggest fear that most people have when they incarnate is that physical death is the end of it, is that there's death. So to make somebody truly free within, to have direct access to spiritual things, you have to take the adept. They would put them in the sarcophagus, and they would literally, you've heard of the 5-finger punch or whatever, but they would literally stop the heart of the adept, and the adept would go through, quote unquote, physical death. And then a few minutes later, they would restart the heart, so the consciousness would re-enter the body with the realization that fear is an illusion, or death is an illusion, that death really doesn't ever happen. And then that adept can become a pharaoh, because now that they know, they've already crossed over to the other side. They know that the concept of physical death is just a sham. And now they can't be controlled. They are truly free. They are truly sovereigns. And that's that. When we get to politics, that's the concept of the founding fathers, was that we were a land of sovereigns, kings. The early founding fathers were Freemasons when the Freemasons were doing good work before they were infiltrated by Adam Wassow and the Jesuits. After that, they were corrupted. But your founding fathers were Gnostics. They had this knowledge. They knew that death was an illusion. They knew. That's why when you look back through history, they faced incredible odds that, it's because they knew that the fear of it was ridiculous. They knew that. They could create reality as they thought it. There's a book called Young Patriots, where I think there's a letter from Thomas Jefferson to Adams or to Washington, one or the other. But there's a quirky little quote that only Gnostics would pick up on, and it's that he said he wanted to thank him for allowing him to see through the veil, to get a peek behind the veil. Well, you have in Freemasonry, one of the secret handshakes is the lion's grip. Well, where that comes from is in ancient Egypt, after the adept had been resuscitated, the grand worshipful master in Freemasonry would reach down into the sarcophagus and give him the lion's grip to pull him out, or pull him up to the light. Now he had gone through the initiation of the pyramid. You have to face death to realize it's a sham. Right? You following me so far?
Yeah.
So, okay, and anybody who's ever heard me on Chuck's show or any other show, they know that I'll start off with one topic, talk about 50 different things in between to tie it back in. So, here we go.
Here we go.
Whenever I began my process of the initiation of the pyramid was when my father passed. So I went through the maze of the Minotaur, the maze of organized religion, and faced the Minotaur, which is your fear, it's your ego, and destroyed it and realized these types of things. And when you go through that process, and it's not easy, then you have access to certain things. So after I'd learned these things, a lot of supernatural events started happening to me, things that like I said, I could be institutionalized for if I wasn't so clever in the way that I worded things, and have been. When I reached this realization, to like Alan Watts came to, when I finally realized, oh my God, we're all God in the flesh. We are all the Messiah. We're all... The word Christian means little Christ, or another Christ. That's what it means. Now, you come to this realization, and you start talking this, and when it comes to you, it comes as a flood of information. It's an overwhelming experience. I like to call it a download, and take it to my nephew. Pointed out that my initials, DLC, means downloadable content. So when this happens to you, people around you will think that you are insane. They will, and you're trying to explain it to them in the fastest way that you possibly can, but they don't have all the information you have. They don't know the things that you know, and so they will turn and happened to me. Okay, I don't know if I've ever mentioned this to you, but this happened, and people around me who had certain legal connections with me went to a judge, okay, and had me forcibly committed whenever I started to teach these concepts. Forcibly committed.
I wasn't aware of that directly. I know you had kind of hinted at that to me in a couple of conversations, but I wasn't sure if that was actually the case.
Yeah, well, I live in the Bible Belt, right? So you go to a judge and you say, he has an altar. Well, the Bible tells you to pray at your altar. I'm just doing what the Bible says. You hypocrite. But when in the Bible Belt, you go to a judge and you say, okay, he believes in reincarnation. He's been reading the Bhagavad Gita. He knows too much. So the judge issued what's called a 1013 here in Georgia and had me forcibly committed for psychiatric evaluation. Now, here in Georgia, the law was that you can only be there for 72 hours. My therapist, thank God, which I find as divine providence, was a Hindu. And she's asking me, why are you here? And I go, look, you're a Hindu. You believe in reincarnation. I said, if I'm crazy, you're crazy. Because I'm saying what you're saying. You know what I mean?
No doubt. Well, pagans have altars also.
Exactly. So basically, look, this is a violation of my First Amendment right. People who were religiously bigoted went to a dude in a robe and said, or excuse me, in this case it was a female, said, he's talking some crazy stuff, Your Honor. We think he's nuts. And the judge goes, well, my golly, we go ahead. Whatever. So they issue the 1013. They violate your First Amendment rights, which is your right to express worship in any way you see so fit.
Right, so if you're not hurting anybody.
Exactly. So I spent 72 hours there. You also have to connect it with the fact that I'm a political activist. So there's people in this state and probably the Department of Homeland Security who would love to see me go away. So after I went through evaluation, my psychiatrist said, I don't know why you're here. And shortly before this incident, I had been stabbed with a butcher knife 5 times, okay, in the head, in the throat, in the clavicle, and in the back, and refused medical attention and had never had stitches for it. Now, I don't know if you've ever experienced anything like that, but that is facing death. That is an experience where it pops your pineal gland, your pineal gland, your third eye, when you go, holy crap, a serrated knife just entered into my skull, and I'm still here. Still here. And this is what they used to do to the ancient pharaohs. They would simulate, well, they wouldn't simulate death, they would physically happen. That's why whenever you enter into the... Yeah, physically. Well, I refused medical attention because I knew that, I didn't need stitches. All I'd have to do was do tantric breathing to create white blood cells. So those white blood cells would rush to the wounds, cause it to clot, and heal. And that's exactly what I did.
Right, it would slow the blood flow also.
Right, exactly. And slow the heart down so that you're not pumping blood. So all this to, and it's not only, you could look this stuff in Gray's Anatomy. So it's not just spiritual stuff. This is scientific. It's, anatomy.
Well, you mentioned the word spiritual. People think you're crazy if you say, oh, I'm not really religious. I'm more of a spiritual being. I mean, I said that to somebody at work, and she looked at me like I had 3 heads. I'm like, I don't participate in organized religion. I have my own personal beliefs, and I'm more of a spiritual person than I am somebody who follows any type of organized religion. It works fine for me, so I don't see why anybody would have a problem with what I believe. If it doesn't work for you, then you do what works for you. Makes you happy, and you can be a happy, productive person, then I don't think it matters what you believe in. That's
live and let live. Uh-huh.
Exactly.
Live and let live.
There's beauty in everything if you take the time to look at it, and you take the time to appreciate it. Just there's my rant.
So, I'm sorry. Getting back to the story, because I'm trying to condense it because there's so many details. It's so... if you can tell, it just energizes me because it's such an exciting thing. But yeah, so I'm sitting here getting evaluated, and my psychiatrist wants to let me go after the 72 mandatory hours. The judge, calls the psychiatrist, breaks federal HIPAA law, demands to know what my diagnosis is and what medications I'm being given. Now, I refuse medications because that's against my spiritual beliefs. I don't want my pineal gland to get calcified with lithium or Zyprexa. I said, look, you guys can forcibly medicate me if you want to, but you are violating my First Amendment right if you do, and we will be held in federal court by the hip for the next 8 years. Because that's against you can't do a blood transfusion with a Jehovah's Witness, and I tell you, it is against my beliefs for you to put any chemicals in my body that will alter my mind. You're violating my spiritual expression, my First Amendment. That's a federal violation. So the nurses were, of course, afraid to speak to me.
It's also a violation because there is such a thing as, and I forget the technical term, but I mean you can literally refuse medical treatment regardless of your psychological condition too, because even if they deem you crazy or whatever, you can refuse to be medicated so long as it's not a life-threatening situation. Like they can keep you alive if you're essentially allowing yourself to die, according to laws that exist right now. But the thing is, legally, they can't medicate you unless it's unless it is something they can deem as absolutely crucial to continuing your life. So you have the right to refuse medication, even if you were forcibly committed.
Exactly, and I did. And after that, the judge called, demanded to know. My psychiatrist, of course, defended me and said, "There's nothing wrong with him. He's been through another traumatic event where he was stabbed, but there's nothing wrong with him. This is a case of religious bigotry." The judge demanded that they send me to another institution permanently. Demanded, was trying to strong arm, because keep in mind, I'm a political activist. It'd be nice to tuck me away somewhere to shut him up. So that didn't quite work out for him. But the judge pulled another little snafu and had me held there for another week. And at the end of it, I was evaluated by every psychiatrist in that hospital and walked out of that place with absolutely, positively no diagnosis of any mental illness whatsoever. But the reason that they want to get people who can quote unquote see the other side or see things that other people can't see, they want to get them in these institutions. They want to put chemicals in their brain because the powers that be on a different level know that it's somebody whose third eye is waking up. And we have got to calcify that pineal gland. We got to put the fluoride in the water. We got to do everything we can do to keep these people disconnected from the bigger truth, which is that everything is interconnected. And we're all divinity, all of us, not one person excluded.
Right,
and that's what that whole medical industry is about: is to keep you shut off spiritually. So I went. Go ahead.
No, there's always been the suppression. There's always been suppression of anybody who seems to have, a thought which is outside of what the general society is supposed to adhere to. This has been done over and over again regarding what is supposed to be, acceptable from a religious perspective, what is acceptable from a political perspective, and this is why. Why I sometimes make these statements about the greater psychiatric community being given too much power over individuals, because, at the end of the day, so long as nobody is a danger to someone else, there is no reason to have them incarcerated, forcibly medicated, all of this other stuff that goes on. It's this is what the greater issue is about, and it's usually somebody who is a dissident in one way or another.
Well, all spiritual leaders are revolutionaries in a political sense.
That's true.
They intermingle, which is one of the main concepts of ZenOnTheCar.com, is to intermingle the two, to get people to start making these connections, that the political world is directly affected by the spiritual realm. And people are waking up to that, thank God. Or goddess. Whatever cup of tea you want.
Sure.
But it's happening.
Did you get the website back up, by the way?
It's back up. It is back up and completely redesigned. So anybody who wants to go there to look and give me some feedback on the new look of it, go to ZenOnTheCar.com.
Yeah, please do. Zen in the Car. Zen, ZENIN, the car, all one word, .com. And also, also your book you might want to mention, because we sometimes do whole shows and forget to mention your book.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, a lot of concepts we're talking about tonight I wrote a novel called Then Came the Flood. It takes place in the antediluvian world. It kind of interweaves a story to make people understand Genesis a little bit better. It is a fiction, historical, however you want, but it is told from a point of fictitious stuff, but there's a lot of nuggets of truth. The best way to get it is to go to zeninthecar.com. There's an icon to the right, click it, or you can go to westbowpress.com, amazon.com, barnesandnoble.com, booksmillion.com, any of your big bookstores, you can get it there. And, it's been ever since I've been on the radio circuit. Because I was going through a divorce, which it was a result of the spiritual enlightenment, which happens. And we finally made peace with everything and becoming friends. So, it was what it was. But, you can go there and get the book. But I haven't marketed it, I didn't market it while I was going through that, but it's doing well now that I have. And the feedback I'm getting from it is phenomenal, and I'm humble, very, very humble, because it was a lot of research that went into it.
Congratulations.
So there's that. Thank you. Appreciate it. And, the sequel is in the works, so everybody who's already read the first one, it's on its way. But, so how does all that tie into my lady?
Somehow I'm sure it does.
There's so much more. It does. That whole process of the initiation of the pyramid is a form of realizing that you're in your last incarnation. Once you realize that you've been here before, you're ready to get out. You're ready to ascend. So I'd never heard of the concept of a twin flame, but I was in very, very, very deep meditation one night, and a process of internal alchemy is tipping the pH balance to alkalinity to electrify the body. You can alkalinize your body so much that you can literally transfer electricity from your hands to somebody who is sick and heal them through touch. Is what Yeshua knew this. It's scientific. The body conducts electricity.
Isn't that kind of what the Reiki healing is?
Exactly what the Reiki healing is. And you can also look that up in Gray's Anatomy. Your heart pumps, beats BTUs, goes through your chakras or your ganglion nerves. You can transmute that energy to somebody who's sick or somebody who's sad. You can transmute energy through touch, through your eyes, through different things like that.
I can do that.
When I had gone through this process, do what?
I can do that. With my
I
hands.
imagine you guys can do a little bit more than you think. Yeah, I have no doubt. I've seen things happen through me, and other people that is miraculous. Some biblical stuff that unless you had been in the room, nobody would believe you. But there's been miracles, But the concept of the twin flame thing is, I was in deep meditation one night, after all this process of my awakening came about, and my computer just turned on. And I think I'd had a tab open to YouTube, and it randomly just went to this video about twin flames. And it starts describing everything that had been happening to me leading up to that point. And so I'm like, okay, and it really, really resonated with me. And I was like, so I'm not alone, because, every other person I've been with, and my marriage was great up until the divorce, and she's a great person, but every relationship I've ever been in, there's always been that something, this is, we all have that feeling that we're looking for the one. So for the next 2 years of my life, after I had to spend time alone to learn to bring about my own identity as an individual, I would start to see signs and symbols and read them, almost like Neo can read the code. And some of the synchronistic events which happens around twin flame unions started to happen to me. For example, I have an affinity for long codes. I have an affinity for the matrix. I was born under the zodiac sign Virgo. And anybody who has done research on when Jesus was born, obviously it wasn't December the 25th. It was probably in September. He was more likely than not a Virgo. That's why we refer to him as born of a virgin. So my birthday is September 2nd, born of a virgin in Atlanta. Keanu Reeves' birthday is September 2nd. go to Atlanta in the Capitol, and the cornerstone was laid by the Freemasons on September 2nd. Masons don't really like me too much because I teach information to the uninitiated. Connection, 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 connection. You see those connections? Too many.
Right.
To be a coincidence. Way too many. So, all these things started to happen to me, all these signs and symbols, and, I was like, okay, well, people do, look to me. So many people find me on the internet through coincidental means, coming to me for information or for answers about either, loved ones who have just passed on, or why is this happening to me? Why are things moving around in my room? And they just find me. And I try my best to take the time with each and everybody who contacts me to answer those questions, because I have a responsibility. I've been gifted with access to answers for people, and they just come through me like a conduit. So all my life, I've, because of my affinity for coats, since those movies came out, I've always, one of my nicknames, everybody's always called me Neo,
Oh, well, you might have just broke up there real bad, Daniel. I don't know if you can hear us. As soon as he started talking about Neo, he just went really bad there. Oh,
no, there's a problem with the call.
We might have lost our call even. Wow. Well, let's give it a second here. I think we might still be on the air.
I don't know, because we had to lose the chat room.
Let's see.
To try to get the Skype to work better, but in case we are still on, I like that movie. The first one was really good.
Yeah, no, the first Matrix movie was awfully intense. The second one I kind of was a little disappointed with, because it was more just like a bridge between the two, the first and the third movie. But definitely interesting. And I'll tell you something, I don't know why we lost Daniel exactly, but weird things happen with conversations that I have with him, where I have turned around and told him that I needed to have a conversation with him, and we get on the Skype call together, and he starts discussing what was on my mind somehow, without actually having any sort of discussion ahead of time. Sometimes it's really weird. Gee, I've never seen that before. It's like blue. Well, it says the call was dropped, so I guess somehow we lost Daniel.
Well, I believe that some people do have that ability, and if you are able to help somebody else, then why wouldn't you want to?
Well, it's odd when it comes down to this kind of knowledge, because it's one of the things that that generally speaking, they don't really want it out to the masses, as it were, that that there are things that you can do for yourself, there are things you can do for others. Gee, I wasn't quite prepared to go into this, but I mean, just by sort of, showing you a couple of different ways to look at instances that come up in your life. I mean, you've seen different avenues, different things that you can pursue, different ways of thinking and behavior and stuff, from this very same kind of set of sensibilities, where, there is an understanding that, all things that are alive are all part of the same, are all part of the same thing and all that as well, right?
Right. Well, I always had that ability to feel the energies, but I just didn't know exactly what they were. When you're younger, you don't understand what it is, To me, I enjoy it. I like being able to feel the differences in the ship. Sometimes it's a little annoying because I can pick up on things that I don't always want to pick up on. So that sometimes can be a pain in the ass. But another problem with the call. He tried to call back, but...
Yeah, Daniel tried to jump back in, but I don't know what's going on.
It's gone. What was I saying? Oh, so sometimes it's frustrating, because I'm sure it gets annoying to you when I can feel your energy shift, and I'll ask you, what's the matter? That can get annoying, but I never realized that I've always had that. And when you get really bad headaches, I can make them go away. All in the energies.
Yeah, so provided that you're in the right space and you, Well,
you need to. It's a matter of focus, also. You need to be able to focus and have the intent. If you're not focused and don't have an intent, it's not going to work.
Right, and sometimes knowledge is gained when you're not focused, when you're actually just really broadly sort of out there. Daniel,
you guys have me back?
Yeah.
Hey,
there you
I don't
go.
know what. Sorry about that.
No problem. You said something about Neo, and that was the end of it, man. You said, they used to call me Neo, and we lost you there. You were gone.
Well, yeah, they used to call me Neo, and I started making certain connections with that, and I was born on September the 2nd, born under the Virgoan sign, right? Virgo. Mm-hmm. Neo was a Messiah type character. Anybody who does the timeline research of the birth of Jesus, it wasn't December the 25th. It was probably early September. He was a Virgo. The Freemasons laid the cornerstone of the Capitol in Atlanta, the state that I live in, on September the 2nd. Well, Keanu Reeves is married. All these connections you start making with the best understanding of all of this is through those Matrix movies, and it's like it's this knowledge of who I am is speaking to me on that level. And I'm not saying I'm the Messiah. I'm saying we're all the Messiah. And that's what the Oracle was saying was, man, know thyself and you will know the worlds of their gods. Start to look at the things that you are drawn to or appeal to you, and they will start speaking to you about these things. Like, for example, your affinity for the JFK assassination. That is speaking to you about this inner awakening. That's on your level. So for me, this is how the universe was trying to wake me up. It was using this iconography of Messiah figures, which we all are, to lead me on this path. So all that in mind, are we still going clear?
Yep.
As far as I know.
So essentially, there's a path down on my road, or down from my neighborhood, where I do a lot of my meditation. I'm just on certain parts of the day. I'll put on Pandora and walk through the forest, and I'll try to pay attention to things that most people think are just coincidences. They're not coincidences. This is breadcrumbs from the universe trying to take you somewhere. So whenever I went on my walk, I just felt this overwhelming peace, a peace I hadn't felt since the day that my father passed. And synchronistic signs or little things on the road I would see, or on different street signs that were graffiti, but it would speak to me individually, was leading me. And as I started to walk into the trail, there was a young black lady that was coming out, and she had a chihuahua with her that looked exactly like this chihuahua that I used to have. That passed away a few years ago. And I remember whenever my dog Cisco passed, I whispered in his ear how to let me know when he was coming back. Like to show me who he was going to be in the next body, so I could go ahead and adopt him or whatever, which I did. It was a Rottweiler later, but anyway, I say that because I'm seeing this dog. It's identical, and I had to stop this young lady, and I said, "I'm so sorry, but what's your dog's name? Because I had a dog that looked exactly like that." Well, we talked for a minute, and then I held up my phone, and looked up a picture of Cisco. And anybody who's seen pictures of me up close, they know I like a lot of jewelry and iconography. And I had rings on every finger, which all mean something to me. And on my pinky finger, I had a ring that my very, very first true love ever gave me back when I was a kid. That first love, And out of all the rings and jewelry and all of these things that were on me, the girl, her eyes went dead to that ring. And she said, "Where did you get that ring?" And I said, "Oh, my first love gave me that ring years and years ago. Now, after she broke my heart, I gave that ring to my mom and said, 'Here, you do whatever you want to with it.' And I had never saw the ring since. And I'd only found that ring about 3 or 4 days before this, and just for the hell of it, put it on my pinky, So it was odd to me. Well, I remember the name of my first true love. You never forget that. And so after me and her chatted or whatever for a minute, I said, "Well, you have a nice day," and all that. And I went to the park. When I got to the park, I was going to take some pictures for the website and, some dailies. And all of a sudden, it was such a beautiful day. There was a stone pile of pebbles, exactly like the pebbles that are in the Zen garden outside of my office. And I just plopped down on this hill and started looking up at the sky, looking at the clouds. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, these two little girls run straight to me from across the park. And I've always wanted a daughter, These two little girls run straight to me like they've known me forever and start teaching me about photosynthesis. 4 years old and 2 years old. Okay? What kind of kids know these things? And a little bit behind them comes their mother, my girl Trin. I call her Trin because she looks like Trinity. And whenever I saw her, I went, oh my God, that looks like Carrie Ann Moss from the Matrix movies, Mm-hmm. And anybody who's seen the movies know that relationship of Neo and Trinity is a twin flame relationship because they've reincarnated from one matrix to the next to the next. And so that's how I met her. And right the minute that we locked eyes, it was, I know who you are, and I know who you are. And things happened in such a rapid way that it's been the most intense experience of my entire life. And so that's how I met her.
Also interesting that when you put the two names together, you get the new Trinity, which has esoteric connotations all its own. But
very good, very, very good. But I call her my Holy Grail. I think everybody has a Holy Grail. The reason that I call her my Holy Grail is because most people want to poo-poo this, but the Catholic Church tried to rip it apart, and if you bring it up to a Baptist, they will burn you at the stake. But Mary Magdalene was the wife of Yeshua, and she knew the secrets. She was his Holy Grail. You have the chalice, the inverted V. You have the male aspect, which is the pyramid, and then you have the chalice, or the cup, the womb. The Holy Grail was Mary Magdalene, who was his successor. It wasn't Peter, it was Mary. The two of them together were the Christ, because the two of them together were a twin flame relationship. Google the Gospel of Mary the Magdalene, and you'll see an argument between Peter and Mary after Yeshua's ascension, where Andrew and everybody they believed because they knew that she was his closest disciple. The two of them were twin flames, and Peter was because it was a misogynistic society. Oh no, she's lying about it, and was jealous. But so, that's where the whole term of my Holy Grail comes from. I found my twin flame.
How long ago was that?
That was October the 16th was the day we met.
That's very nice.
October the 16th.
Yeah, I like that story. That's a nice story. What did the
There's a lot more to it than that, but
what was the significance of the woman looking at that ring, do you think?
Oh, I'm glad you mentioned that. Because, and I whenever I talk publicly, I'm just going to use her nickname, Trin. But her name is exactly the same name as my first love. So at the beginning of the path, that name came up, my first love from years ago. And then at the very end of the path, I met my twin flame that had the same name. Alpha and Omega, a revolution.
Huh. Yeah. That's just crazy.
So that the significant. Yeah, it is. And every single day, whenever we have to part ways, run errands or whatever, and we come back, there are so many events that happen to us. I mean, she was texting me earlier. There's me and my mom have this thing where whenever we see a red bird, it's my dad coming to visit, and it happens all the time. But soon after, me and my twin got together, she starts pointing out red birds all over the place.
Well, they say cardinals are people from the past coming to visit.
Yeah, certainly are. And speaking about children, her daughter, her youngest, the table that's in my kitchen it used to belong to my father, and we would always sit for hours and hours and hours and hours drinking coffee. He had his designated dad chair, And so that chair sitting in my living room. Well, the other day.
See, he's breaking up again. I got as far as he has the chair sitting in the living room now, and it's not at the table.
Right. I wonder if the little girl...
Probably she knows something about... we're running out of time, and Daniel disconnected again.
Right. I think we have about 6 minutes left. But, yeah, she's probably talking about his dad. Well, that's pretty cool.
Well, you see relatable events like that happen a lot with younger children. They're able to pick up on things in a unique way. And, of course, this is an odd synchronicity that happened with the ring having... he doesn't want to mention her name directly because... certain reasons.
No, that's fine.
The thing is that his holy grail, as it were, and the story that he's telling you about. You probably saw the Da Vinci Code, and the concept of the truth being hidden from the church, the bloodline of Christ, and all that kind of thing, which actually in recent years has been pretty fascinating. I mean, even the guy who made the Titanic movie, his name eludes me at the moment, but...
James Cameron?
Yeah, Cameron went and put together a documentary about the discovery of the true grave of Jesus and all of that.
Right.
Where they find that, he had a son and was married and everything else, and of course, this is a big piece of heresy because Christ was not supposed to have ever taken a wife, and Mary Magdalene is categorized as the whore and all that, according to the standard dogma in the church. So it's one of those controversies, though, that has gone on quite a while, and of course, in the redacted. Oh, there we go again, Daniel. I don't know what it is that's interfering with us.
Right, we have about 5 minutes, Daniel.
But you were talking, you were talking about the chair, okay, which was from your dad's table, and you said that the chair is now being placed in your living room. It's generally in your living room, but you were also talking about Trinity's daughter there. So that's where we left you.
She woke whenever Trin woke me up. She said that she saw her youngest looking at the chair, and her head kind of cocked, and she kind of gave that look, and she said, "Mommy, you scared him away. You scared him away." And woke me up. She said, after she said that, a cardinal landed on the bush outside the window. Well, but there was a lot of synchronistic events where I believe that my father was leading me straight to her. That, for example, a week before, his last living brother passed, and I had my dad's pocket watch from Vietnam, and I always put poker chips, because I buried my father with poker chips, and so I tossed a few poker chips in his brother's grave, and that was the thing between me and my dad was, here's your buy-in when you get to heaven, So there are some of my close friends who have a poker chip from me, and they know the meaning of it and how special it is. But whenever me and Trin met, after, we talked for like 2 hours, didn't want to leave each other, and, I just reached into my bag that I always carry with me, and I said, here, reach in here and grab one. And she grabbed out a poker chip. And, later when we were chatting, because, we did the Facebook friend, that's 2014, that's what you do. It blew her away about the significances of, the poker chip and the pocket watch that she saw pictures of. And she was like, this is insane. It's ever since I met you. And before I leading up to that day at the park, there were so many synchronistic events that led me to the state of Georgia. She had just gotten to this state of about a week before. But she said that she felt this compulsion, this overwhelming compulsion to come here and to come to that park that day. And then after they parted ways that day, it blew her away. She was messaging me left and right, talking about, oh my God, you're going to think I'm crazy, what I'm seeing and hearing on the radio and stuff like that. I go, believe me, you're not crazy. But it's an intense thing, and it's not just she and I that are going through this or experiencing. There's people all over, especially in meditative circles and spiritual circles, that are going through this process. And it's because together, twin flames are literally here to upraise the rest of the species. And we live in exciting times because of that.
Right. And now you have 2 daughters, right?
Now I have 2. That's exactly right.
Very nice.
And they are absolutely amazing. It's amazing.
Well, I saw on your Facebook that you bought them, or Santa Claus or whoever may have brought them, their little saber swords that they were playing with.
Yeah, they're lightsabers. Yeah,
there you go.
Little Jedi. Yeah, they sure are. They're so
and they were pink.
See things. Yeah, you know, I'm having to struggle. You know, like with the Christmas stuff. I knew I had to do the you know, the princesses and the pink and all that. But you better bet your sweet ass they had some superheroes and Transformer stuff in there too, man.
There you go. It must have been a fun day for you.
It was exciting. It was the first time I had Christmas with children, you know. So yeah, it was a very exciting day for all of us.
Good. Well, we have about, probably a minute and a half, maybe 2 minutes left. So I wanted to thank you for coming in tonight and talking about that. You always are very fascinating to listen to when you speak.
Thank you. It's better than having a psychiatrist tell you.
Yeah.
About what you speak.
Well, if it counts for anything,
yeah,
Daniel, if it counts for anything, Daniel, I don't think you're crazy.
What I would let people know is that anybody. Thank you, appreciate it. Thank you, appreciate it. We're not crazy. We're evolving. But I would say I'm a very, very approachable, and if anybody who has been listening has any, you know, questions or, you know, wants pieces of information or something that we spoke about tonight resonated with them, don't hesitate. Send me a request on Facebook. It's Daniel Lewis Crumpton, Louis is the one, Crumpton, and tell me, you know, you heard me on whichever show, and whenever I can, when I can make time, I love talking to people about stuff like this and sending them on spiritual journeys. So don't hesitate to do that.
No, maybe you can help me figure out who comes to visit me.
Maybe. We'll have to chat offline sometime.
Yeah.
I've helped a lot of people do that. And it's a blessing. It really is a blessing.
All right, great.
Yeah.
Well,
and thank you too.
There it is. Thank you, Daniel. And we'll see everybody next Saturday. Good night.
All right.